Hey, this is Hammer with a 2400 point battle line against a high elf opponent. So I've gotten established in my new community, but unfortunately the fantasy scene is almost non-existent. So I've kind of taken the lead to build up the community and I've managed to recruit 4 players that are interested. So one of those is this high elf opponent. So I was going to do a full army book review of the Lizardmen, but decided against it because it's a little bit late for that, and there are plenty of other comprehensive Lizardman book reviews you can see on YouTube. So what I'll do instead is go over my initial 2400 point list and what I think about the units in that list. And then as I do reports and make changes and discover new builds, I'll post my thoughts on them then. So overall impressions of the new book are that it's gone down in power level a decent bit. That's mainly due to the reduction in the power of the magic phase. So Lizardmen used to be able to have just a completely ridiculous magic phase, and it's definitely not at that level anymore. So new book tried to compensate for this by increasing combat power a little bit with Predatory Fighter, Strength 7 Croxagore, and things like that, but it doesn't quite bring the book back to the level that it was with the absolutely crazy magic phase. I still think it's a good balanced book. It'll be fun, but certainly not on the level of Warriors of Chaos or the new High Elves. Probably my biggest gripe with the new book is that the 2 beautiful looking models, the Carnosaur and the Troglodon, are just not good in the game. So the Carnosaur's toughness 5 has no way to get any type of protection against cannons. Yeah, I just can't see myself bringing one. I mean, even halberd wielding, Empire guys will be able to kill it. So that's a little bit unfortunate. Really wanted to use one. And then the Troglodon itself is probably the worst monster I've ever seen in Warhammer. I mean, let's be honest. It's really bad. So really unfortunate. It kind of sucks that the new stuff is so soft, because a lot of the Lizardmen armies I think will look pretty close to the way they looked in the old book. So going to my list itself, so filling out the core, I've got 3 units of 10 skirmishers with blowpipes and a unit of 11 with the patrol leader, just to make my core points as minimal as possible. So I like these guys for the same reason I liked them in the old book. So they're functional chaff. They can redirect things, flee, and blowpipe down some monsters. I think there's a nice synergy with the Hand of Glory spell to buff up their ballistic skill, and that's one of the reasons I like blowpipes better. Just the sheer number of shots with the high ballistic skill I think will end up better. So they did get a leadership nerf, which will make rallying these guys a little tougher outside the general's leadership, but still think they're a solid choice for the core. So also rounding out the core, I've got 25 Saurus Warriors, full command. Still same solid stats as always, same points cost. The Predatory Fighter was a decent buff for them for the most part. So they're kind of in that unique place where they're excellent at grinding down other core infantry, but they're not quite at the level where they can deal with elite infantry. So, fairly solid for what they do, and provide some ranks to the list. So going to special, so this is an interesting choice, the Bastillodon with the solar engine. So I think this is the only new model that I've actually purchased for the Lizardmen. I like it because of its balance spell. So it really allows you with 1 dice to, at least half the time, put out a strength 5 or strength 6 spell with banishment level damage. I think that's pretty efficient damage for 1 dice. And most of the time, if it's below that, it'll at least be on the level of a Shem's Burning Gaze. So I think that's pretty good, pretty efficient for 1 dice. And it puts your opponent in an interesting position where if he rolls 1 dice to dispel that, he risks, rolling a 1 or 2 and losing his +4 to dispel. And then if he rolls 2 dice to dispel, well, he's rolling 2 dice to dispel a 1 dice spell. So the damage potential can kind of play tricks on an opponent, and that's pretty cool. I like the initiative buff, gives you a little more defense against shadow and death magic. But in terms of combat, he's pretty soft. I mean, 3 attacks, 1 strength, 10 attack is kind of a gimmick. I'd probably throw it at a foot BSB to try to punch through some armor, but really the best he can do is face off against some core infantry. Only being strength 4 is really soft. It's kind of surprising giving that a salamander, which is half the size of this thing, is strength 5, but whatever, I don't write the rules. So pretty interesting choice. For 150 points, is it as good as a 130 point Gorebeast Chariot? I don't think so, but should be fun to test. So also continuing with special, I've got 5 Chameleon Skinks. So went up in points, dropped a leadership, gained a Scaly Skin. So I think they're in the list mostly because I don't have any Pterodons, who I think are probably better at War Machine hunting. But these guys are painted, so they're there. Also for special, I've got 26 Temple Guard. It's nice that these guys dropped by 2 points. So a pretty solid choice, I think. Fairly cheap, so I can take a good block of them. They're not quite at the level of a lot of other elite infantry in the game, but fairly cheap. So I think they're efficiently costed and they're stubborn. So yeah, they fill a nice combat block role in the list. Going to rare, I've got an Ancient Stegodon. I think these guys came out pretty nicely in the new book. Dropped a significant number of points, and I'm running them with the Sharpened Horn upgrade, which gives his already D6 plus 1 strength 6 impact hits D3 multiple wounds on top. So really like the idea of charging this guy into a unit of Mournfang, a Demon Prince, another monster, and just one-shotting it. So love the damage potential of this guy, even though he doesn't really have any cannon protection. Another fun choice, and he's painted, so he's in the list. Also in the rare, I've got a salamander. I don't think they came out too bad in the new book. So the biggest nerf, I think, was not being able to march and shoot, but being strength 4, that +1 to wound can really help out against the infantry hordes that they're best at taking down. So I've got one in the list, and I also like the synergy with Walk Between Worlds and the salamander, getting them positioned for a nice flank shot on the horde. So I think it's a good versatile choice. So talking about my characters themselves, so my Salon Mage Priest, I made him as much of a party Salon as I possibly could, just to see how powerful the new magic phase actually can be. So he's got the Channel Staff and Harmonic Convergence, so channels 3 dice on a 5+, which is very nice for both defensive magic and offensive magic. Nice consistent way to generate dice. He's got the Soul of Stone, so try to move a miscast up or down by 1 to prevent blowing up too many Temple Guard. He's also got the Becalming Cogitation, which I think is very powerful. Lets me re-roll my first failed Dispel attempt in a magic phase. Really like that. I think it lets me play the defensive magic more risky, so I can kind of match my opponent's power dice with my dispel dice, because I get to have the reroll. So bring some efficiency to my defensive magic. And then I've also got let's see, Lore Master of High Magic. So really curious how High Magic will work. I think it's got a lot of interesting synergies with the Lizardmen, and it's especially powerful as a Lore Master lore, because a lot of the spells are very situational, and just having the whole range lets you really get that right spell for the right situation. And being able to swap spells out means, I could throw something out that I don't need turn 1 and exchange it for something powerful like a Searing Doom against Knights, or a Spirit Leech against a powerful character. So really curious how this will end up. I think it'll be a lot of fun in the Magic phase. So also rounding out my Magic phase, I've got a level 1 Priest, a Beast with a Dispel Scroll. So between channeling 3 dice and Cogitation and a Dispel Scroll, a pretty strong magic defense across the list. So also like that this guy can shoot out, let's see, direct damage and magic missile spells within 24 inches of the Slann. So really increases my line of sight with the Slann and adds that flexibility to the Magic phase. And he also has the additional role of preventing my Saurus from running off too far with Predatory Fighter. So I think it rounds out the list nicely. And finally, I'm running 2 Scar Veterans, and I think these guys are awesome. I'd go as far to say as they're the best thing about the new Lizardmen book. So I think they actually went down in points. The cold ones gained an extra attack. Very nice. Still strength 5, tough 5, weapon skill 5. So the one on the left, I'm running with Armor of Destiny and a great weapon. So he's got a 1-up armor save, 4-up ward, he's tough 5, and then he's strength 7. So just a beast that can take down a lot in the game. And the guy on the right has got Sword of Might, Dawnstone, and Charm Shield. So strength 6 with a 1-up rerollable and ignores the first hit. So I really like the role these guys play in a list. And the role I see for them is taking down support combat units. So by that I mean small knight units, things like Peg Knights, Chariots. I think they can go in and just crush them. And this is where I think the Predatory Fighter rule is strongest. With their high weapon skill, high strength, they'll really make use of those extra attacks. So love the role these guys play. And overall, I think my list is pretty balanced and lets me see a lot of the new stuff in the Lizardman book, so I can make a decision on what I want to add or drop. So I'll play the same list for at least 3 games. So here's an overview of the deployment. And going to my right side, I've got my Salamander in the Woods, Ancient Stegodon, Skirmishers, and Slann with Temple Guard in the center. So center left, I got my Bastiladon, Saurus block, 2 units of Skirmishers. The left one has my level 1 Priest. And on the far left, I've got some more Skirmishers and both my Scar Vets. So looking at the High Elf left side, he's got 12 Silver Helms in 4 wide formation for damage with a Standard Musician. He's got 5 Reavers with Spears and Bows, 6 Dragon Princes full command. Towards the center, he's got 5 more Reavers, a massive unit of 29 White Lions with Banner of the World Dragon, and a level 4 Life Mage with Book of Hoeth. A big unit of 29 to 30 Phoenix Guard with the Razor Standard, and he's got a BSB that's defensively kitted. And on the far right, he's got 5 more Reavers and 2 Bolt Throwers up on the hill. So this is his Vanguard move on the right to block my Chameleon Skinks from scouting near his War Machines. And so I decided to scout my Chameleon Skinks in the center of the board behind the building, just so I have the flexibility to use them for redirection wherever I need them. So going to Lizardman turn 1 to make the movements that you can see. So my plan here on the right is to feign a push towards his big blocks, and then in later turns move backwards and chaff up those blocks, because they scare me pretty good. Being able to fight in 3 ranks, I don't think even my Temple Guard can face one of those units alone, let alone 2. So I want to try to keep his focus here towards the right side of the tower, while my Scarvets and other units clean up the left side and come to support later on in the game. So that's my overall plan. So a view of my units' movements towards the center and out on the left. So I don't have a picture of it, but in my magic phase, I get the Bastiladon bound spell off and shoot it at his white lines. Roll a 6 for 2d6 strength 6 hits, but that's when I realized he has the Banner of the World Dragon, so he warded those. But at least I discovered it with only 1 dice spell. In my shooting phase, shot my Salamander's breath weapon at the Illyrian Reavers, but I misfired and ate 2 skinks. And here's an overview of the board after Lizardmen turn 1. So going to High Elf turn 1, moves his Reavers forward to chaff up my Stegodon and get in the way of my skirmishers there. And he moves his big blocks forward safely underneath that redirect. And towards the left, he moves another unit of Yeomen to, not Yeomen, Illyrian Reavers to block one of my Scarvets, and cautiously moves his Knight units forward. His magic phase, I shut down completely. In his shooting phase, one of his bolt throwers takes 2 wounds off the Bastiladon. And his Reavers pick 1 wound off the Ancient Stegodon. So going to Lizardmen turn 2. So declare a charge with my leftmost Scarvet into his 4 wide Knight unit. Needed a 10 or 11 to make it, but failed and moved forward 4 inches. So I knew if I had landed that, it would be a huge payoff because he wouldn't be steadfast at all, being 4 wide. It also wasn't worried about receiving a charge from that unit either, because he has a fair number of attacks, but he has no rank bonus. I'm toughness 5. My 1-up rerollable would still be a 3-up rerollable, and he's weapon skill 4, so I'd hit him on 3s and wound him on 2s. So even if I took a charge from that support Knight unit, I was pretty confident my Scarvet would be able to take him down. So also move forward some skirmishers there in case he took the bait and charged them, in which case I would flee and make him take a redirect test. So if he failed that, I'd have an easy charge and an easy victory. So looking more towards the center of the board, my other Scarvet charged the Illyrian Reavers that were redirecting him. They elected to flee, redirected my charge into the Dragon Princes and made it needing a 9. So beautiful matchup for him with his strength 7. He'll just tear through that Knight unit. So in my remaining moves, I surrounded the fleeing Reavers with my Skinks and just shot them down with the blowpipes. So other than that, just moved up my Source Warriors to try to get around that tower and into the flank of those big blocks on the right for the end game combat. So looking towards the right, so I charged my Ancient Stegodon into the Reavers that were in front of him. He fled, and I just took the failed charge. I don't know why I did that. In hindsight, it would have been a much better idea to redirect a charge into the second unit of Reavers, because even if he fled with them, I would have enough chaff to jump up and block his big combat units from charging my Ancient Stegodon. So that's what I should have done in hindsight. So let's see, it's just showing my Skinks took down his fast cav on the left side with the blowpipes. And over here, my other Skinks killed 4 out of 5 Reavers in front of them. And I actually marched forward my Salamander to shoot a breath weapon at his Phoenix Guard, which I shouldn't have been able to do, because you can't march and fire with them anymore. So I cheated there, but luckily it overshot and only killed 1 Phoenix Guard, so didn't matter too much. Then after close combat, he fed me his Dragon Prince Champion. I just mopped the floor with him. 1 combat, but he passed his leadership 9 steadfast roll. So on High Elves turn 2, he makes a charge with his 4 wide Silver Helms into my Scarvet. So again, not too worried because I have a lot of confidence in the stats of this Scarvet. Looking more towards the right side. So he charged his White Lions into my Chameleon Skinks and then just got a failed charge. Then he charged his Phoenix Guard into my Skirmishers. I fled. And he redirected into my Salamander, and I held, which was just a stupid move because I easily could have fled and bounced safely through the building, and he couldn't redirect again, but I just wasn't thinking. So he rallied his fast cav and whipped him around the building. So nice to have such a flexible unit in core. And uses his other Illyrian Reaver to redirect my Temple Guard unit. So this was the only spell cast by either player the entire game. He got Irresistible, +2 toughness on his Dragon Princes. I put 3 dice into dispelling his Throne of Vines, which definitely mattered because these guys are toughness 5 now, but I don't care because I'm strength 7, so winning them on 2s anyways. See, his Bolt Thrower picks off 1 Temple Guard. And after close combat here, so I kill another Dragon Prince. Kind of whiffed my attacks a little bit. Either that or he made one of his 6+ ward saves. And so we got a draw in combat. He won by a musician, but I passed my cold-blooded 7. And over here on the left, so he actually snuck a wound through on me, which I was a little surprised by because I think he only landed 3 or 4 wounds. And I failed one of my 3 upper rollables. So I came back though and I killed 3 knights. So he had a charge, a wound, a banner. I had 3 kills. So he won by a musician, but I stuck my cold-blooded 7. So now he's going to be wounding me on 6s. And I'm just going to eat this unit. So my confidence in this Scarvet was well founded, I think. And here's an overview of the board after High Elves turn 2. So going to Lizardmen turn 3, on the left side I move a skink unit to face the flank of his Silver Helms just to ensure victory on my Lizardmen turn 4. He's towards the center, so I move 1 skink unit to start picking off some more White Lions. So I think between some minor magic and shooting, I've picked off about a rank or 2 of White Lions, which is pretty good. And then I moved my source block to start threatening the flank of those big units. So it's kind of the plan I had going in, sort of back up my expensive Slans unit and then get all my support on the left side to get engaged in this final combat. So view towards the right, so there I go, back up my Slans unit a bit, not to give him any easy charges. Rally both my Skirmishers and my Chameleon Skinks. So plan was to just shoot off that single Reaver with magic. But I failed my first cast and magic phase ended. So yeah, that's how magic pretty much went for me all game. I was rolling exceptionally low for spells and just failing to cast and ending my phase. So I don't think that's that's a good view of what Lizardman magic will be like in the future. I have to test it a few more games. So I also moved my Ancient Stegodon right alongside the building, out of line of sight of his White Lions, which is the main unit I'm worried about in terms of facing my Ancient Stegodon. So if his Phoenix Guard come in, I think I can hold him up for a little bit, being stubborn, and hopefully chaff up his Lions and give me a chance to isolate those Phoenix Guard. So after close combat here, my Scarvet goes to town. I think he lands a predatory fighter, kills 3 Dragon Princes. only one left, and surprisingly, he actually sticks on his leadership. I think it was 7. Yeah, he's a standard bearer, so leadership 7. And over here on the left, my Scarvet kills 2 more knights and wins combat, but he passes his steadfast leadership 8. So going to High Elves turn 3. So he charges the rear of my Stegodon with his Reavers. Actually sneaks a wound through, but I kill 3 of his. He wins by 1, but I stick. In his magic phase, he throws the Dwellers at me, but I dispel it. And in this final combat, my Scarvet cleans up his Dragon Princes very nicely. And in the combat on the left, my other Scarvet kills 2 more Silver Helms, wins, and he passes his leadership 8 once again. But on Lizardmen 4, my Skinks charge the flank of the Silver Helms, clean them up easily. And here's a view towards the right side of the board. And this is when he conceded the game, but I'll just talk through what happened. So I charged the flank of his Reavers with my Bastiladon to clean them up. I charged my Temple Guard into the front of his Phoenix Guard. So you can see he's pulling them off the table, but when I charge them, they're right in front of where the Temple Guard are now. I also took my Chameleon Skinks and jumped them in front of the White Lions to keep them out of combat for a round. And this is before I completed all my remaining moves, so I would have taken my big block of Saurus. They would be facing the rear of where the White Lions are now, and started bringing my Scarvets over to the fight. So, he's looking at it, and he knew I'd cleaned off a lot of his points. I was in pretty good position, so he decided to concede and go watch NFL football on Sunday. So I was pretty curious how this actually would have ended up, because I really wasn't very confident that my Temple Guard could deal with those Phoenix Guard with the Razor Standard. So all those rerolls to hit, and the Razor Standard, I only get a 6 to save. That would be pretty tough, especially with his 4-up ward save. So I think he might actually be rated to win that combat. He's got a BSB just like I do. So yeah, I was not confident about that. So really what would have to happen is I'd need to bring my Bastiladon in the flank of those guys, start adding more stomps, bring in the Stegodon, probably tie up the White Lions with either the Saurus block or another chaff unit, and then go from there to grind it out with them. So I think I still was in a strong position to win, but those blocks are tough. I was definitely pretty intimidated by them. But anyways, overall, I was very happy to finally get a game of Warhammer in. Yeah, really enjoyed playing the new Lizardmen. A lot of flexibility, a lot of things to do in different phases of the game that are unique to the Lizardmen. Everybody has shooting, magic, combat, whatever, but there aren't any armies like Lizardmen that can just throw a bunch of skirmishers all over the place and just be so flexible. Keep using that word, but that's how I see this army. So definitely the all-stars of this game were the 2 Scarvets. So these guys are total badasses. And in this matchup, they filled the role that I really thought they were strongest at. Taking down support combat units. They did it beautifully in the game. So you can see how they can really create a mismatch. Being toughness 5, having 1-up armor saves. Once they get in with mounted human or elf knights, just getting wounded on 6s is just too much for them to handle. So really glad to see them perform in their role, as I hope they would. So anyways, overall, I just got to keep building up my local gaming group, and hopefully I'll be able to get a few more consistent games and keep testing out the Lizardmen. So I'll play this one for at least 2 more matchups before I change the list to really get a sense of what the Lizardmen can do. Anyways, hope you enjoyed it.